you've got the big news today, which is that we're all going off to the Middle East, aren't we? We're all packing up sticks and joining the IDF.
Yeah.
Are you guys happy about this? Are you infused? Are you ready to go and commit the worst war crimes imaginable?
I've already...
Yeah. Oh, you'll be fine, yeah, don't worry. Sorry, Ryan.
I've already got on the blower to Jeff Samuels, seeing if I can get his spare room on Airbnb, somewhere to stay while they train me.
I'd like to clarify that I only mean Yaya will be fine because he's American and not subject to British conscription. I obviously didn't mean it as in you'll be fine because you're Jewish, but because they'd be even more likely to conscript you because of that.
Yeah. Had to fill out paperwork to avoid that.
Yeah.
There's also the risk that they could just let you get killed or maybe even just blow you up and say, oh, wow, look, we've been attacked.
Yeah. Oh, no.
It's the third Holocaust.
The game is to say that you would prefer to go and fight in Ukraine, and then if they try and get people to go and fight in Ukraine, be like, no, I'm not going to Ukraine until the hostages are freed over it,
I can't go and fight in Ukraine. I'm only 30. I'm not old enough.
Yeah.
It's like the US presidency. You've got to have, more than 50% grey hairs showing to sign up for the Ukrainian military.
But on the subject of whether British people have to die defending Israel in war with Iran, says UK envoy to Tel Aviv, I say no, and we shouldn't do that. No. That's not good.
It's a bad idea.
And I won't do that. And if they try to make me, I'll be doing some funny stuff with those grenades.
Can you still get out of the military by pretending to be gay? Is that still... I know it worked in the 60s. Or can you just do an offensive impression of a disabled person? That was... I think they all... In the 60s, people who got drafted, they used to try and do both just to have all bases covered.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that our podcast effectively disqualifies us from any military service.
I would hope so.
I'm sure they have a gay cavalry
that's the only
now.
reason I've been doing it. I'm quite right-wing in real life.
And on podcast. So the actual quote from the ambassador. The UK's ambassador to Israel, there we go, speaking to Israeli journalists, said, "The United Kingdom will be a close ally and is prepared to put its own aircraft and its own personnel in harm's way to defend Israel." And he revealed that although we kind of knew this anyway because the denotices aren't entirely effective, that British forces have already been actively involved in military operations supporting Israel, noting that the Royal Air Force, sorry, I almost said Royal Albert Hall, still got that Dylan gig on the brain, flew alongside Israeli and US pilots during Iran's missile and drone attack in April. Without going into detail, on October the 1st, the British Armed Forces again played a role in trying to disrupt the Iranian attack on Israel. So Britain is still deep in this war, and Starmer should have an arrest warrant out for him as well.
We've known since the beginning, I think, that US and British special forces, at least intelligence, were on the ground there because we've heard reports from people there. I mean, Joe Biden famously accidentally uploaded a picture where he was shaking hands with all those uncensored US Special Forces people who were ostensibly in Israel.
Whoops.
And
Brilliant.
Matt Kennard's reporting on the effectively daily flights assisting the IDF in many ways. I would assume that given that the entire British commentariat, the entire British media has agreed to the D notice, that I would assume things are much, much worse than we have any conceivable idea. I would assume that given the presence of British intelligence, given the presence of American intelligence, the presence of British and American intelligence has been reported in the New York Times as well. So it's a verifiable fact, despite what the British media will tell you. I would assume that they have been doing those flights and helping them with the coordinates of all these
certain
terrible
babies and
and Sinwar and whoever else. They don't care how many people die at all. Obviously, it's Israel. And they'll murder literally, the numbers are 70% women and children. And Britain is materially supporting, if not providing the entire basis for that with America.
Yeah.
And now we are several months into Keir Starmer's ministry. He is aware of this. He's sanctioned this. He has allowed this to continue. He's allowed this to happen. What do you say when the arrest warrant has been issued for Benjamin Netanyahu and security minister, the defense minister?
Well, and they...
What do you say to someone who actively aided that when they were in power and before that went on every TV station saying this is good and we should go further.
100%. Like, now the government, they're hinting, to use the words of, I think, The Guardian, they're hinting that they would arrest Benjamin Netanyahu if he set foot on British soil. But at the same time, they're making clear that the PM wants to continue to deal with the Israeli PM over issues including pushing for ceasefire and trade tech matters. That's Lee Harkin's words, but tech matters. They're going to keep working with the Israeli startups. Don't worry, guys.
But think about that, like, they are, through a spokesperson or through someone else, they're briefing Lee Harkin, whatever, they are hinting that they might abide by an international arrest warrant by the ICC, even though it's a completely hypothetical scenario.
I mean, yeah, and what exactly? He's not.
It's not going to happen. He's not going to come to the UK. He's not going to come to Europe. He's not going to go to the US. He's not going to do any of those things.
He can go to the US.
Well, the US isn't even a signatory.
Yeah, he'll be fine in America.
Yeah,
actually.
I understand that, but there are reports that Netanyahu wouldn't risk going to the US because flying over signatory countries, they might force a landing. And arrest him. Regardless of anything, it's an entirely hypothetical scenario, and he won't even attribute it to his own name.
No, exactly.
They are constantly just posting all of this nonsense about fucking respect orders, whatever else. They're just trying to flood the media with horse shit, and it doesn't work. But it becomes more inexplicable that they haven't put out any kind of statement. They won't even, with their whole chest, back the ICC.
Yeah.
How morally depraved or compromised or whatever you want to call it, how deep into that rut do you have to be? You have Politico reported with, I think the headline is, with the impending presidency of Donald Trump, can Keir Starmer save the progressive West? Shit like that.
I've heard him say, well, I'm a progressive. I know that he's
less bombastic about it, but he is effectively identical on the issue of Israel and many other things with Donald Trump. Yeah. He just gives it this boring English managerialism. And because he delivers it constantly through back channels and whatever else, and when he does a media appearance, he's just always repeating some talking point that doesn't make any sense, and it never plays well at all. It has less of a cataclysmic effect than when Donald Trump says something inflammatory or something definitive.
Absolutely.
But effectively, they are identical on the issues.
Well, let's hear what his spokesperson says. When asked about the issue, Sir Keir's official spokesman says the government respected the independence of the court. He declined to say whether Mr. Netanyahu would be arrested if he arrived in the UK. So it's not confirming, is it? You can throw away the headline saying they confirm that he will be arrested. The spokesman says, we respect the independence of the ICC, which is the primary institutional institution for investigating and prosecuting the most serious crimes in relation to international law. So, just probably what comes up if you Google what is the ICC. There's a little description. This government has been clear that Israel has a right to defend itself in accordance with international law.
God.
Yeah. There is no
There
is no moral equivalence between Israel, a democracy, and Hamas and Lebanese Hezbollah, which are terror groups.
Whoa, what was that? Lebanese
why
Hezbollah.
do they need to clarify Lebanon?
Whoa.
Is it because Lebanon's one of the bad countries now, so we need to make everyone aware that they should hate Lebanon?
It's
the obviously you differentiate from the French Hezbollah.
Yeah.
Inuit Hezbollah.
It's the new all Palestinians are Hamas, all Lebanese are Hezbollah.
Yeah, but it's just, again, these are just the same tired lines they've been trotting out for a year. Right to defend itself in accordance with international law, which obviously they're not going to do. Israel, democracy, not morally equivalent to Hamas and Lebanese Hezbollah. And for the millionth time, no, they're not equivalent. They are much, much worse.
Yes.
Sakir, that's what we say every time that the Labour government say that. Sakir's spokesman said, we never comment on future international visits, but my position on the Prime Minister's support for Israel in terms of its right to defend itself in accordance with international law is very clear.
It beggars belief that we're at this. It's 13 months since October 7th. And they are speaking, no other world leader speaks like this. Apart from maybe Trump's team will put out a press release. It's significantly more interesting, but follows the same vague verbiage. They're saying the same thing. But I would love it if we had anything remotely resembling a functional press in this country so that someone could ask Keir Starmer if he agrees with Netanyahu that it is anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
His arrest
the
warrant.
second word in Netanyahu's tweet about it. The anti-Semitic verdict by the IC. It's so funny.
I would love to know his answer to that, but I mean, obviously he would give some fucking non-answer bullshit, but it would be nice if someone tried to get an answer.
Some of this talking about the institution, and, it'll change the things that need changing, but not the Israel policy. That is not changing.
Yeah, if George W. Bush said that word for word, they'd be crucifying him for 20 years.
It'd be in the book of George W. Bushisms. And then, so there's a couple more bits of this. The spokesman repeatedly declined to go into hypotheticals about whether Mr. Netanyahu would be arrested if he arrived in the UK. He added, "It's not up to the Prime Minister to determine other world leaders' travel schedules." Oh yeah, that's the issue, isn't it? That Starmer, people thought that Starmer was in charge of Netanyahu's diary. They thought that Starmer was Netanyahu's personal assistant, although I kind of understand why you would get that impression. That's not what anyone thought, actually, spokesman. That's not the point. He engages and will continue to engage with the Prime Minister of Israel in support of, third time he said this, Israel's right to defend itself.
In accordance with international law.
No, he didn't say that this time. It's fine. They can kill indiscriminately.
I don't know if it was specifically the arrest warrant or what, but it was sufficient enough for the entire West to cease communications entirely with Putin when he was accused of war crimes. And, Keir Starmer was the first person saying that he'd committed war crimes.
He put out a statement for fire and brimstone.
Could you imagine if he had put out a statement saying, "I will continue to engage with Vladimir Putin"? It would be a non-starter.
Yeah, saying
Russia has a right to defend itself in accordance with international law.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's no moral equivalence between Russia, a democracy, and Ukrainian Nazis. Pressed on what he meant by his comments about the court, the spokesman said, "It means that we respect the independence of the ICC." That is exactly what they were saying when there hadn't been any verdict. They haven't changed the lines at all. "We respect the fact that the ICC is the primary international institution." So that suggests that because Starmerite speaks so repetitively, that suggests that when he said institution earlier, he tripped over his words. The primary international institution for investigating and prosecuting the most serious crimes of international concern, like ASBOs, I assume. That seems to be the biggest crime on the government's agenda at the moment, making sure you slap
respect orders.
Yeah, slap those little outs with the neo-ASBOs.
Smash the gangs. How about the IDF?
The biggest gang of all, am I right? Biggest criminal gang?
Yeah.
Right. Should we wrap up in a minute before we all get sent off to Israel?
Probably,
We've not got long before the plane ships out, but we've got plenty of stuff